Hi everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Maddie Hildebrand and I'm one of the media team members with Tying Vines. We thought this month we would do something different to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Tying Vines. So we have Mary Kenney here who's going to tell us about the history of Tying Vines and talk a little bit more about what she sees possibly happening in the future. So Mary, you and I have known each other a long time. We've been in on this thing from the beginning. Yeah. Why don't you start talking about like when you and Jeff had this idea and how Tying Vines came to be?
Okay. Well, when Jeff and I moved to the Middle East, we saw a lot of people there, got to know a lot of people there who were from many different countries around the world. And we just loved getting to know them. And we loved learning about their cultures. But we also became aware that there are a lot of people around the world who are vulnerable. They are at risk because they come from unstable places. They're born into poverty. We became very aware of the idea of classes, people coming from different classes and having different rights and privileges based on just where they came from. And we were really burdened for looking for a way for how we could reach into some of these communities and from a Christian perspective offer hope, encouragement, empowerment, just really make a difference in the lives of these folks in a very tangible way. A few years later, my brother, completely out of the blue, came to me, and he has a brother who's a pastor, and a brother-in-law who's a pastor, and his brother-in-law was down in Mexico, and they wanted to support him, and they were trying to find a way to do it through a nonprofit, and so he was asking us if we could help him solve that. And we had a friend who was also a pastor in another country, and we were trying to support him. And so we thought, well, why don't we just start our own nonprofit? Then we can support these pastors through it. So it was just a solution to an existing problem. It wasn't with a big plan, wasn't with a big budget.
Mm-hmm. So when you started, Mary, how much money did you think Tying Vines would be helping with? Like, you had these two groups or these two organizations, like what were you thinking and how did it start, and then where are we today?
Yeah, we didn't we didn't have a budget. We just had our little bits that we were sending to these guys. So but for our application we had to give an estimate of our annual budget for 3 years. And I said, let's just aim high. Let's put $20,000 on there. And I thought that sounded silly, but build it and then see what God has planned for it. And that's what happened. Is God had other plans for it. So bit by bit, we added new projects into our portfolio, just through somebody we knew who had a God-given passion to make a difference in a particular community, primarily not in the U.S., primarily an at-risk community, or we have some churches that are also part of our organization. So, but they were just burdened to make a difference, and so we took them on, and we took on the responsibility of connecting them to their donors, their supporters. Giving them a platform to communicate their ministry, and that's really where the name Tying Vines came from, was the idea of connecting our supporters, donors, and the greater world to these really great things that people are doing. But they're small, they're grassroots, and but one person can make a huge difference, and we just want to help empower them to do that. So it's just kind of grown little bit by little bit.
Do you want to share about one specific project? Like I don't know. I mean, I can think of a few that I love learning about, but
Well, 2020 was a tough year for everyone around the world. Obviously COVID has been hard for everyone, but it's especially hard for the vulnerable and impoverished communities. I mean, these places, these communities in other countries, when they would go into lockdown, they didn't have access to PPE, they didn't have access to cleaning supplies, they didn't have, maybe food. So it was an opportunity really for some of our projects to really serve in these communities as they were, experiencing these hardships. So in one of our projects, food and supplies were provided to refugees. What I love is in those refugees, some of them had already been in some training programs. We had some girls that were learning how to sew. Again, these are training programs so they can be equipped for supporting their families in the future or even now. And so these girls started sewing masks, and masks were in short supply. And so they weren't just for each other and the refugee camp, but they gave them to security personnel, they gave them to hospital personnel. I mean, they were able to minister from these teenage girls out into the greater community just by having this sewing program. And another one, we had laborers who, their project shut down and they had to go into their labor camps. They weren't getting paid because their project shut down. So they had no money. They couldn't go out and buy food. And so this project, they were bringing food, cleaning supplies, PPE in to help them out during these times. So, just neat opportunities there. In another situation, we had an orphanage in Africa where the government required the orphanage to close, and they had to rehouse all of these orphans. So we were able to raise some funds to help these poor communities take in these children, give them a bed, give them, just the supplies they needed to be able to take on another child into their home. So it was, it was an opportunity in a difficult year to, show that these little grassroots projects really can make a difference in the lives of some folks. So there were good stories.
Yeah. And so then finally, how do you see what's next for Tying Vines? What are you, I know you've been working on, you told me you've been working on some goals and vision for the future, just.
So, our goal is to, equip and empower these communities. So we're looking always for new ways and how we can do that. This year, we're hoping to launch something we call our Tying Vines Marketplace. The goal with that is to some of these communities, they're learning skills and they're producing products, and we'd like to be able to have a platform for them to market these products. We're hoping to have that launched later this year. This last year, we started some initiatives, some of our projects in fighting human trafficking. So we have that going on, and we'd like to grow that and maybe move into some of the legal aspects of human trafficking. So that's on the wish list. I really hope we get there. I realized in the way that Tying Vines has grown that it's not really our organization, but it's God's. And so we don't have too many plans for it because we know He does. And we need to really just be open to where He's leading us. But at the same time, in reflecting, we've started to understand who we are and try to, improve upon these areas where we've been able to impact in these small communities in the world. And so we're just looking for ways that we can improve that, grow people's networks, help them reach out to the greater world, because the stories, there's just some amazing stories, and we want them to get told because you just can't help but get excited when you hear these stories. So
wow. That's great. Thanks, Mary. And honestly, from a personal standpoint, I'm really glad that God brought us together in 2007, because you and Jeff have really been great friends, and we're really glad to be a part of it.
We need you guys in our lives. You guys are just super special. So.
Yeah. Wow. Well, everybody, that's it. Thanks for watching. Happy 2021.